Michael Lewis, in your new book, The Premonition, you follow the stories of people who warned that a crisis caused by a pandemic was coming. It was like the intelligence pre-9/11. The dots were all absolutely there to be connected. Why do you think that those people found it so hard to find leaders who were willing to listen?
Well, who wants to hear bad news? But the picture was more complicated than that, because if you go back, the pandemic preparation in this country, it begins with George Bush, where he actually worries about it and generates a plan. He brings in people to generate a plan that's wholly original and gets adopted by much of the world. So it's not like there was not attended to at all. It was more that it was regarded as a theoretical matter and not an actual threat. And because, well, why? Because it hasn't happened in 100 years, because there have been a bunch of false alarms, because the nature of the threat, and the nature of the threat is it actually isn't till it's overrun you that you believe it, because you can't see it. It's this invisible thing.
There's a public health official in your book, Dr. Charity Dean, and she describes it as like Noah building the ark. Everyone thought you were crazy.
The people who were actually in public health here, who were actually in kind of disease control, were very local officials. I mean, the real battles up until COVID, when it was a measles outbreak or TB or Ebola or whatever it is, that it gets managed at a very local level. And Charity Dean was kind of a crack local public health officer who saw back when she started her job in 2011, that the society wasn't prepared, because whenever anything happened, she was on her own. There wasn't anybody to help her. And if you kind of watched, there've been increasing transmission from animal to human of pathogens that could be potentially deadly. And it was really just a matter of time. And all my characters would say this. It's maybe too much to say they saw exactly this coming, but they thought, be prepared anyway. They all think this was a dry run for something worse. They all think that we got off easy, that Mother Nature gave us a warning, and we better get our act together, because it's exposed our inability to deal with it.
When they say they see it as a dry run for what might come next, what do you think the lessons are for next time? And will the world handle it better, or will complacency creep in again? So just as America basically didn't have a system of public health, it was 3,000 disconnected local public health officers who just weren't networked. They really weren't led in a serious way by the CDC. There was just, it's like there's not a system. America sort of gave the world an object lesson in what not to do. Is, to the extent you are disunited, to the extent you're not handling all this in a collaborative way, your efforts are going to be futile. That if you are practicing excellent hygiene in your home, but your neighbor is not, you're exposed in a way that you shouldn't be. And so this kind of need for a collective response, it's just so obvious. And where we fell apart here is we didn't have one. For the people who tried to sound the alarm early on COVID, to have things like school closures and social distancing put in place to limit the number of deaths, how has it impacted them psychologically to watch it play out like some of their worst nightmares?
Let's take a character, Carter Mesher, who was an ICU doctor, a critical care doctor, whose whole life was devoted to saving life, who watched people on the brink of death cling to life, who had a sense of just the preciousness of life. It's pulled into the Bush administration and reinvents pandemic planning with a very vivid imagination about it all. That, like, okay, if 600,000 Americans die, to him, it's not a number, it's 600,000 tragedies. He's watched his plan not be used. He's watched the mass death. He's watched his own mother die of COVID, and he's broken up. I mean, he's a strong person, but it's not very hard to get him to cry. That he is, as he said, I feel like a balloon that's lost all its air. And I will reinflate, he said, but I feel like a balloon that's lost all its air. And I think that's one of the responses I've seen from them. The other response is,
A little bit of the superhero response at the end of the movie when they actually lost to the villain, that they're not dead, they're coming back, and they're going to try to figure out how to fix this. So they're you see kind of both.
Michael Lewis, thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 7:30's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.